We are just a few months away from the next Eurovision Song Contest. Basel, Switzerland is getting ready to follow up the highly contentious 2024 edition, which has already gone down as the most controversial year in the show's history.
What can you tell us about the result?
Yeah, good evening.
Eurovision promises to be a celebration of cultures under the banner United by Music, but instead, it was met with mass protests, scandals, and scathing criticism directed at the organizers, the EBU.
The EBU. Debut.
It was unlike anything that we've seen before, and as such, there's a lot at stake for Eurovision's future. But the EBU seems optimistic that they can come back and rebuild the show for the better. Today we're taking a look at how the EBU is looking to repair Eurovision's reputation and what challenges they'll be facing in 2025. Coming out of the mess that was made in Malmö 2024, one of the biggest concerns was that some broadcasters would be reconsidering whether or not they would return to the contest in the future. And considering the outpour of official complaints that were filed to the EBU, that seemed like a pretty legitimate concern. As time went on, it did look like some broadcasters' participation was in serious doubt, and there was one country that people were especially concerned about. One of the scandals that got the most attention was the unexpected disqualification of the Netherlands after their artist was accused of intimidating a crew member backstage. The incident led to criminal charges which were later dropped due to a lack of evidence. Because the broadcaster had consistently defended themselves as being unfairly disqualified and had a whole list of their own criticisms of the EBU, the feeling was pretty strong that the Netherlands wasn't going to be back for 2025. Other broadcasters took longer than they normally would to confirm their participation. An example would be Ruv in Iceland, who said that they were still undecided until only a week before the deadline. Now, in December, the EBU announced that 38 broadcasters would be participating. That number included all 37 countries from 2024, plus Montenegro, who is returning after a 3-year hiatus. But in late January, TRM in Moldova announced that they would be pulling out, claiming that the quality of entries that auditioned in their national selection was too poor. So, apart from Moldova, all of the broadcasters that were in 2024's show will be back for 2025. With the concerns around countries dropping out being put to bed, it would seem that the broadcasters are confident that the EBU is steering the ship in the right direction and that Eurovision can be saved. Clearly, nobody wants a repeat of 2024, and in order for that to happen, some changes are needed. So what are those changes? Over the summer, the EBU ran an investigation into the fallout of last year's contest. One of the takeaways of that investigation was that the contest had grown so big over the years that too much responsibility was falling on the shoulders of the one person in charge, the executive supervisor. As a result, 2 new roles have been introduced to allow the leadership to be more focused on specific areas. Martin Österdahl will stay on as the executive supervisor for 2025. His job will be to focus on the production and the relationship between delegations. A separate role, known as the head of brand and commercial, will take on some of the responsibilities that used to fall under the executive supervisor. And both of them will report to the new ESC director, Martin Green, who previously worked as the managing director for the 2023 contest in Liverpool. Another takeaway was that more needed to be done in order to protect the artists' welfare. In any given year, competing in Eurovision comes with a lot of pressure and scrutiny, and it's at a level that a lot of artists are simply not used to. When you add that to the tense environment of last year, which some people seem to want to exploit, it's become clear that the artists need more support. So to deal with this, filming backstage will be significantly reduced. Anyone that's looking to take photos or video of an artist will need the permission of that delegation's head of press. In addition, the delegations will have a space where no filming is allowed whatsoever. There are also significant changes to rehearsals. They say the rehearsal schedule will be optimized to give the artists more time to rest, and that more rehearsals will be closed door. Finally, there will be a welfare producer that the artists will have access to with the goal of ensuring their safety and well-being. Beyond the artists themselves, anyone that's looking to get accreditation, whether it's delegation members, journalists, staff, crew, vloggers, they will now need to agree to the new code of conduct. In an interview that Martin Green gave with the Eurotrip podcast, he says that it's 99% the same as the code of conduct that's been in place before. It's just been simplified and consolidated so that it's easier to understand. Whether or not there will be more changes is unclear, but I think for the time being, most people would agree that there is an effort to improve the environment of future contests and to mitigate the chances of harassment. But beyond the behind-the-scenes changes, there's something else that's happening that also seems very intentional. If you listen closely to some of the language that's being used in the promos for Basel 2025, you'll notice that they are almost excessively reminding people of what the show aims to do.
In 1956, here in Switzerland, a promise was made to create an international TV show that celebrates music, friendship, and togetherness. We invite you to celebrate this promise with us next year.
Now, when we see these videos for the host cities, they usually don't harp so much on the meaning and significance of the contest. Usually what they aim to do is show how the city embodies the spirit of Eurovision on its own. If they do dive into the meaning of the contest, they usually do so in less specific ways. And you could look at examples like the teasers for Rotterdam 2020.
What is it really about? For me, it's about music first, always.
Thank you.
But it can be about whatever you want it to be.
Right. We've gone from anything you want to this is what it's about. We're telling you. And they might not be doing it intentionally. It could simply be how they're trying to show people that they understand that faith in the contest is lower than it was before and they're trying to rebuild trust. But sometimes the way that it's put can be quite patronizing.
In a world of many voices, Eurovision calls us to unite through music to celebrate our differences and share joys. A magical space where listening brings us closer. But what happens when millions come together to listen? That's when magic happens. We become one celebration.
The thing is, the public does not need to be on board with the EBU's intentions. They tune in for whatever reasons they have. It could be because they genuinely enjoy the contest and the songs, like many of the fans do, or it could be because they thrive off of the snarky commentary. Telling them that this is what the contest is does very little. You have to show them that you can fulfill that promise. And the issue with 2024 was that no one believed in the United by Music facade from the beginning. Now, what I find to be especially remarkable is that there's been all this talk about the need for a change and so little talk about why. It seems like people don't want to talk about why the environment was so tense backstage, or why the audience was booing during a performance, or why artists were being filmed without their consent backstage. No one ever had to answer for that. And so if we're really interested in 2025 not being a repeat of 2024, we need to talk about things directly. We need to address why the antagonism against the contest was so high before we even got to Malmö. Israel's military response to the October 7th attacks by Hamas has continued to make headlines around the world. A growing number of international bodies and human rights organizations have accused the government of committing genocide on Palestinian civilians. It has taken 470 days for a ceasefire to be declared. Within that period of time, only 8 Israeli hostages held captive in Gaza were freed by military intervention. At least 15 hostages are believed to have been killed directly or indirectly by their own military. As part of these operations, Palestinians have been deliberately targeted. Official statistics range from over 47,000 killed to hundreds of thousands killed. Palestine is considered to be the most dangerous place on earth to be a journalist and a child. And beyond Gaza, we've seen Israel use similar brutality in the West Bank, Lebanon, and Syria. All of this has led to dozens of protests around the continent against the contest, demanding that Israel be removed just as Russia was removed after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. As recently as a few months ago, the EBU has reiterated their stance on Israel's participation. They insist that the contest happens between broadcasters and not governments, and that the circumstances are different to when Russia was excluded in 2022. Now, what we saw in 2024 should make it perfectly clear that the broadcaster-government distinction has very little value. Cannes was going to accept disqualification after having 2 of their songs rejected for political content, but then Israel's president intervened and the lyrics were modified to make the song eligible.
If it's supposed to not be political and the EBU wants it to not be political, doesn't it get political when the president gets involved?
The president got involved in a peaceful way. He said, I don't want this song to be political in their eyes.
After Eurovision 2024 took place, it was revealed that Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Advertising Bureau ran a global ad campaign that effectively turned voting for the song into a political cause. It only took one contest to show how flimsy that reasoning was. But even if it had stronger logic to back it up, why should any of it matter to an ordinary person? It is true that the broadcasters are the real competitors, even more than the artists. But in the broadcast, to the audience, they're introduced as the country they are representing. The BBC competes as the United Kingdom. SVT competes as Sweden. Cannes competes as Israel. And so this is the path that they've chosen. People are expected to come to the show after over a year of seeing some of the worst brutality to ever be widely broadcast through their phones and celebrate the country that's been causing that brutality. All of that is what's not being said when people refer to the backlash against Eurovision as politics. And the behind-the-scenes changes won't do anything about that. Back in September, I put out a question on Instagram asking people how they were feeling going into the next Eurovision. There were a handful of people that showed a good amount of positivity. Excited and hoping for the best, sincerely. Excited and intrigued. I'm feeling hopeful. 2025 shouldn't be as intense. Just want to focus on the music this time around. We'll go back to normal, hopefully. Cautiously optimistic. I truly hope some steps are taken. The majority of people who responded showed a lot more trepidation about the coming year. I fear that Eurovision from now on will be far from the uniting event that we are used to. Heartbroken. Eurovision has been a source of joy to me, but now it has me feeling a bit apprehensive. I just hope it has a more positive atmosphere. Another 2024 would be awful. I was honestly deflated and ready to throw the contest that I loved so much away. I returned home from Malmö with a bitter taste in my mouth. I'm willing to give the EBU another opportunity, but with my eyes wide open. I feel like nothing has changed. I'm nervous it's going to be a mess again, and I'm worried for the artists. Feeling not too hopeful about the EBU fixing some of the issues we saw in 2024. I'm still exhausted, and I'm lacking the usual joy and excitement I have around this time of year. My feelings are complicated, literally supposed to be writing a show about Eurovision, and now I just don't know what to do. Tense from the start. I feel like we're all hanging as of now. I'm feeling exhausted. We risked an outcome which would have been way more lethal to the contest's reputation. Quite a few made it clear that their relationship to the contest has been permanently changed, and many of them pointed directly at Israel's inclusion. Nothing will change. Israel will intimidate the countries that don't agree with them, and they will claim to be the victim. Not going to watch until Israel is out of it. Considering Israel is still in, I have no intention of following it. Last year made me realize the entire show is propaganda. I'm a bit tired. I need the EBU to ban Israel ASAP. I can't deal with another year like this. I won't be watching it or enjoying it in any way after 2024 and the EBU's continued troubled stances. My interest is totally dead, to be honest. I might just watch the national selections and that's all, but even that I can't feel any interest about. It's going to be so hard, but I don't think I'll be following for the first time in 8 years. It just doesn't feel right. Only one commenter said that they were able to factor out the backlash and enjoy the contest otherwise. I'm the kind of fan who always focuses on the music, because that's what brought me here to the ESC world. All the drama that we had this year is just background noise to me. Here's hoping for a brighter ESC season next year. I also got a comment from somebody from Israel who shared a number of opinions that I think are worth considering. I'm entering next year's Eurovision season knowing it will not be an easy one. Israel will not withdraw voluntarily because of pride, a sense of responsibility, a need to be heard, and to some extent, spite. As long as there are no sanctions on Israel by other organizations, the EBU will not withdraw Israel. The risk of being accused of anti-Semitism is just way too great image-wise. Now, because these comments are specifically from people who follow me, I'm careful not to make any assumptions about how they reflect the general attitude of all the fans. Also, being someone who doesn't beat around the bush when it comes to this topic very likely affects the kind of people that are willing to interact with me directly. But the dissatisfaction with Eurovision is still showing up in other ways. I was really surprised that this didn't get more coverage, but if you watched Junior Eurovision in November, you might have noticed that they skipped a step in the voting process. Normally, they throw to the executive supervisor to confirm that they have a valid result, just like they do in adult Eurovision. But this year, in the jury rehearsal the day before the broadcast, when they got to that part of the program, Martin Oosterdal was booed again. At Junior Eurovision. And it's not because that show had its own set of controversies. From what I've heard, the biggest scandal to come out of that was the questionable use of AI-generated postcards. But they cut that segment from the televised program for the first time. The fact that that happened in the first place just goes to show you that the antagonism against the Eurovision brand is still there. Now, will that antagonism be felt in every moment? No, of course not. People will still be able to connect, to follow the national selections, root for their favorites, get into the same arguments about robberies and jury voting and deserved winners. None of that is going away. It's also fair to say that if the ceasefire in Gaza holds, the level of backlash against Eurovision specifically might not be as high as it was in 2024. But it's also important to consider that 2024 is not when the protests against Israel's participation started. And this is a good opportunity for people to reflect on the why, rather than just dismissing it as drama. Also, the charges of genocide still remain. Israel's image on the global stage could get worse, especially if we get a more full picture of what exactly unfolded in Gaza. Whatever the level of backlash is, it will be part of the story for 2025. And if you want to have a frank discussion about this coming Eurovision, this is where you want to be. So please subscribe to the channel where we don't refer to protests against a genocide as drama. Also, feel free to leave me a comment about how you think 2025 will unfold. Do you think it will be more calm than 2024? Will the behind-the-scenes changes truly protect the artists? Will we be getting another one of these by the end of the show?
The EBU debut.
It's all on the table as far as I'm concerned. Thank you so much for watching. There are more videos on the way, including quite a long one that you'll be seeing in the next few days, and so I hope to have you back for that. Take care.